Okay, so thanks Zoe for helping me with this. You might want to write some stuff down, so once you pick a pen, probably not yellow because it doesn't show up very well. All right, so you don't need it just yet, but you might want to write something. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is just tell me how many tiles you think there are. Don't count them. Just what do you think? Nope, it looks like you're counting them. Just what do you think there?
See how many are in one row.
I know. Just a gut reaction.
I'm just gonna guess like there's 20 maybe,
Okay.
30.
Somewhere between 20 and 30 maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and count them and find out. And you can count out loud.
I was right, 24.
24. Okay. So I noticed when you counted them, you moved them away. How did that help?
Because then you know that you're not repeating them.
Okay. I'm going to put them back kind of in front of you. And I want you to count them again. Is there a way you could... I noticed you counted them by ones that time. Is there another way you could count them?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24.
Okay. And how did what you did that way, it was different. What was different about it?
Instead of counting by 1, like 1, 2, 3, you were doing, you were skip counting by 2, so you would basically, instead of saying 1, you would only do even numbers.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to, let me just ask you, is there another way you could group them? You've counted by ones, you've counted by twos. You think of another way you might count them?
There are basically a lot of numbers you could do. For example, you could do.
Well, what would you do? What do you think would be a good way to do it? You can choose.
Maybe you put them into groups and see how many are in each group, and then you put the same amount in every group, how many groups there are, and then you times it.
Okay. Go ahead and do that and show me what you mean.
4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and 4. And then you'd see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what's 4 times 6? 24.
Okay. All right. So then the groups of 4 worked for you too. Okay. So we've done a couple of different ways to count them. So let's put them all back together. So all 24 just kind of in the middle. How many would you have if I gave you 10 more?
You would have 34.
And how'd you do that so fast?
Because I know that if you add 10, it's just, you're adding exactly 10, which, for example, if it was 20, it would become 30 because there's exactly 10 between those. Mm-hmm. And it would just change the front number, wouldn't change the back number. So then it would, because 10 isn't, for example, it's an even number, so it would be a very similar number. So it would most likely become the same number, except the front number would change to like a 3, a 4, or 5, or something.
Okay, so with that idea, let's go back to the 24. Let's say I gave you 20 more. How many would you have?
Then I would have 44.
And how about if I gave you 30 more?
54.
Okay. How about if I gave you 100 more?
124.
Okay, and how'd you figure that one out?
Because I know that you would just keep that, and then 100 is also an even number, so and it's bigger than, and it's a 3-digit number, so you would just take the first digit, you would just remember that's a 100, you would put it in front, and then you would just keep the other numbers.
Okay.
And it becomes 142.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to 24. What if I took 10 away?
Then it would become 14.
Okay. How about if I took 20 away?
Then it would just be 4.
Okay. All right. So let's go back here. Do you have enough here? Some of these questions are probably going to be ones you don't really have to think about. You're answering so fast. But do you have enough to make any groups of 10?
Yes.
How many?
You could make 2 groups of 10, and then there would be 4 on the side.
Okay. And how did you know that?
Because I know that in 20 there are 2 10s, and then 4 isn't enough to make 10. So you would just take the 2 10s, and then you would just kick out the 4, basically.
Okay. All right. How many more items or tiles would you need to get to 30?
You would need 6.
And how'd you figure that out?
Because you could, for example, you could do a minus. So what's 30 minus 24? 6.
Okay. Is that what you were doing? Because I could see you were doing some thinking when you were figuring it
Yes.
out. Okay. How many more would you need to get to 40? And you can think out loud.
You would need 16.
Okay. And how'd you figure that out?
Because I already know that to make 30 you need 6, and I also already know that between 30 and 40 there is exactly 10. So you would make it 16.
Okay. How about if you wanted to have 100? How many would, if starting with 24, but you wanted 100, how many more would you need? So what are you seeing? I see you're looking at something. You're kind of, I know you're seeing something in your head. What are you seeing?
I'm basically saying, so since we know that it's not 10 between 24 and 30, so that I'm going skip counting by 10, so I'm saying how many 10s I would need from 40 to 100, and the answer is, I think, 6. And then you still have that extra 6, so it would become 66.
Okay, all right. So if I'm going to put this over here. How many would you have if let's go back to 24, if I doubled the number that you have? How many would you have altogether?
48.
And how'd you do that?
Because I know, so first you would, for example, should I write it down?
You can, if that helps.
So you would, for example, you would do, so we have 24 plus 24 equals, first you would add what's 4 plus 4 equals 8. So then you would put the 8 here, you always do the second number or the smallest number first. And then you would add what's 2 plus 2 equals 4. So it would become 48.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. How many would you have if you gave me, if you had these 24 and you gave me half? How many would you have left?
12.
And how'd you figure that out?
Because I know that half of, so basically I would do, so 24, for example, you could skip count by 6, for example. You know that, so for example, 6 plus 6 equals 12, and then 12 plus 12 is 24, so that gives you the answer that is 12.
Okay.
Although I also already knew that, because that's one of the easier ones.
Okay. All right. I want to know more about this. How does knowing that 6 plus 6 equals 12, how did that help you know that half of these would be 12?
Well, technically I already knew, but if you skip
okay.
count by something, and then you, for example, it's also the same for 2. You could do like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then you would go all the way to 24, and you would see what is exactly in the middle. Or you could do basically, okay, I forgot my other way.
Okay, that's okay. If you remember it, you can tell me. I have, well, how about, so you told me how many you would have if we doubled this. Do you know how many you would have if you had 3 times as many? What are you figuring? You're doing some important stuff in there.
It would be 62, because basically what you do is, so first you would do was 24 plus 24, we already know that,
Okay.
so that is 48, but then you would add another 24, or you could just do like 24 times 3.
Okay. Do you want to do that, or you feel?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. All right, so here's another, let's move this out of the way, although you might want paper. If you were going to share these with 6 people, how many would each person get?
Everyone would get about 4, because I know if it was 12, half of 12, so if it was 12, I know that half of 12 is 6, so then I would divide it to 2s, but then since 24 is double 12, you would make it double the number, so it would be 4.
Okay, so each person would get 4. How about if, how many people could you share with if you gave everybody 3?
You could share with, I think, 8 people.
How'd you figure that out?
Because I counted by 3s.
Okay.
3, 6, 9, 12, and then again 12 is half, so I know that's 4 was 4 plus 4, 8.
Oh, okay, all right. Are there what are some different ways you could share them equally? Like we talked about 8 people, we talked about 6 people.
You could, for example, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, blah, blah, blah. You got what I mean?
And then how many people would that be?
6 people, I think.
Let's see.
Or, I mean, sorry, 12 people or something. I'm going to recount that.
Okay.
People.
Okay. So if you shared them with 10 people, how many would each person get?
Each person would get about 2, basically.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other ways you could share them equally?
Well, you could also share them, just give everyone 1.
Okay. And then how many people could you share it with in that case?
24.
Okay. All right. If you wanted to share them evenly with 5 people, how many more tiles would you need?
You need 1 more.
And how? Tell me about that.
Because what I do is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, but I also know that 5 can only go by 5s, which means it would be like 10s and 5s. But
Okay.
then 4 is less than 5, and also it's more than, for example, a 10. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to be like, so what's the closest one? For example, once you find out that it's 24, you would be like 25, and then you would, oh, that's a 5. So then you would do what's 25 minus 24, 1.
Okay. All right. That makes sense to me. I have one more question. So let's go back and remember we have 24. If you shared them evenly, shared them with 7 people, how many leftovers would you have?
There would be 3 pieces left.
And how'd you figure that out?
It's basically the same what I did for the 5. I skip counted by 7s, and then I'm like, it only goes up to 21s, and then 4 is not enough. So.
Okay. All right. That was wonderful. I think those are all of my questions. You were super helpful.